What is up, everybody? Shwazy here, and in today's video I'm going to be telling you 5 things that I love and 4 things I wish were a little bit better on the 2024 Alfa Romeo Stelvio. Okay, so the Alfa Romeo Stelvio. If you guys haven't seen my full comprehensive review on the YouTube channel, I'm going to link it up on the screen right now so you guys can check it out. But the point of today's video is just to talk about some of the highlights, things I've loved, things I wish were a little bit better, or dislikes, and that way you can have a more informed decision when you're considering one of these as your next vehicle, which you probably should, because one of the things I really love about this car is pretty far ahead of the competition, but we'll talk about that later on in the video. Now, first off, in no particular order, we're going to start with the things I love, and that has to do with the exterior styling. I think this looks really, really good. I mean, this thing looks foreign, it looks Italian, it looks like a sports car, and that's because it really is. It is made in Italy, and it carries off that Italian heritage. Now, for 2024, they did update the front end and the rear end styling, and I do like how these tri-lobe headlights, that they call them, look when you're driving at night, when you're seeing your reflection in the windows. It just looks really good, and I love that Alfa Romeo triangular front grille. That's kind of a heritage item that they've used for decades at this point. The Alfa Romeo badge, and then you kind of have this little bulge that turns into the badging at the front. I do love that front splitter, how it kind of has this sharp angle to it. They also repositioned the front vents, but overall, this is such an attractive looking front end of the vehicle, and I don't think anybody really thinks this is an ugly looking car. Everybody who sees this, everybody who walks by it, they find it to be a very luxurious, sporty looking vehicle. I like these bulges on the hood, and if you guys are wondering what this paint color is, it's actually bespoke to this particular trim level. It's called Moonlight Gray, and it's like this matte white, matte gray color. It's about an $1,800 option, but if you guys like matte paint, this is going to be one of the best ones you can get. It looks really nice. Now, this is a new trim level for 2024. It's called the Competizione, and that is where you can get this paint color. And then I do like how you have these 21-inch wheels, the red brake calipers, the blacked out trim pieces all throughout the vehicle, around the window surround, the roof rails. It's just such a good looking vehicle. And then on the side, you have this large body line, same with the one near the bottom, and then this giant bulging rear fender, giving it kind of a Porsche-like sportiness to the rear end, and it wraps around these updated rear tail lights, which are also LED. You also have daytime running lights when the vehicle is on, and they look really nice at night as well. They're no longer just fully red. They have this clear glass to them, and the rear end of the vehicle looks very sporty and nice as well. I particularly like the deck lid spoiler that wraps around into the windshield, and then you have your dual exhaust ports back here with your rear diffuser. But styling has got to be one of my favorite, if not the favorite feature of this particular vehicle. Now, the next feature I love about this vehicle has to do with these seats. Now, there's a couple things to talk about. First off, I love the styling. You got the Competizione trim level embossed into the seat headrest along with the Alfa Romeo badge. I like that red stitching, and I like how you have all this red stitching all throughout the vehicle, and I do like this perforated leather here in the center. I like the horizontal shape to it. But one of the things I love about these seats is the fact that these bolsters are so nice. I mean, they really hug you tight, and you can actually adjust them using the buttons located over here down near the seat. So if you're a little bit wider, you can loosen it up, but if you want a little bit of a tighter drive when you're driving this in the canyons, you can inflate these and they'll hug you really tight into the seat. Same with these bolsters over here. They're really nice and tight, but it's also a very comfortable seat. And you also have these thigh bolsters over here so that your legs have a little bit more support. These are 8-way power adjustable, and they are memory seats as well. These are also heated seats. Now, unfortunately, they are not ventilated, but you do have heated functionality here, and a very nice seat overall, especially when you're driving this up a canyon. Now, the next feature I love about this vehicle is this upgraded 14-speaker Harman Kardon audio system. Now, in my opinion, Harman Kardon makes some of the best in-car audio systems that you can buy. It sounds really crisp, really nice, and this one also has a subwoofer in the trunk. So jumping back here, let me show you what that looks like. You got this subwoofer located back there. You've also got more speaker grills located right behind the second row passenger seats. More speakers in the second row up here and down at the bottom. And even though I showed off this speaker, there's actually another one located down here in the driver and passenger door panel. And then of course you have speakers located right behind the front windshield as well. Now, even though it's difficult to show off what good audio sounds like over the camera, let me turn on a song, and that way you can kind of hear for yourself. So For what it's worth, you may have to take my word for it, but it sounds really good inside of this vehicle. Okay, now the next feature that I love about this vehicle is something they've added for the 2024 model year, and that is this all-digital instrument gauge cluster display. Okay, so not only does this instrument gauge cluster display have a pretty cool startup and exit graphic, but turning this vehicle on, this vehicle has a pretty vibrant 12.3-inch all-digital gauge cluster display, and it's got a little bit of functionality here. So first off, there's this more simple mode where you just have your speedometer in the middle. Everything else is kind of left blank. But if you push this button located over here on the windshield wiper stock, you can cycle through 3 different modes. So you have this calming one, you have this traditional gauge cluster display with your speedometer on the left and tachometer on the right. And then there's this sportier mode where you kind of have the numbers show up as you're accelerating. So as you can see there, I'm accelerating and it shows what the numbers look like, and same on the left hand side with your speedometer. Now if you change into different drive modes, so for example I'm going to change it into sport mode, changes it up a little bit, the background changes, and then your red line changes a little bit as well, and then you can change it into eco mode, and that will change the background graphic as well. So a little bit of customization there, nothing too crazy. You can't do like a full screen maps or anything like that, but it's a nice refresh, and it's cool to see this type of technology in the Stelvio, which has typically been a little bit late to the game in getting some of these updates. Now, pushing this button over here on the steering wheel, you can cycle through different settings in the center. So you can go through your MPG, you can just do a speedometer, you can also see some messages and your driver assistance. And then pushing that button again, you can cycle through various modes located over here on the right hand side, like your PSI, your trip information, and your Bluetooth or Sirius XM audio. And then your adaptive cruise control will show up over here on the left hand side. So if you push that button on the steering wheel, it'll turn on your adaptive cruise control and your lane centering as well. So really nice update. I'm glad that Alfa Romeo has kind of stepped up some of their technology here on the inside. Okay, now the next feature I love about this car is its driving dynamics. We're gonna put this into the D mode, which is like the dynamic sport mode. Tightens up the suspension, the throttle response is a little bit better, and then we're actually gonna put this into manual mode and use these paddle shifters, and let's see how this thing accelerates. Going on this corner here. This thing is so fun to drive. It is honestly surprising. You don't expect a crossover to drive the way this thing does. And I think, partly is because it kind of stretches the definition of a crossover. It's more of a wagon, but still, I mean, this thing, once the turbo kicks in with these giant paddle shifters, you can, quickly shift up, shift down. It's so quick to shift to, and it's not a bad sounding engine. I wish the sound was a little bit better and the exhaust sounded a little bit more burbly, but boy, is this thing fun to drive, and it just sticks to the road so well. That's one of the things, if not the most favorite thing of this vehicle, is it drives so well. And all the things that I dislike about this car are almost forgotten when you get behind the driver's seat. Now, maybe the passengers will think otherwise, but as the driver, none of those things matter, because this thing is the best handling and best driving luxury compact crossover I've ever driven. Hands down, this thing just drives so smooth. And you don't have to pick this top of the line trim level Competizione to get the same feeling. Yes, the Quadrifoglio adaptive suspension only comes on this particular trim level, but all the other ones still have the same engine, and it pulls really well, and they still have the same driving dynamics that you find in this one. And so the fact that you can get this much fun out of a $46,000 crossover is really amazing. So that has got to be one of my top favorite features of the Alfa Romeo Stelvio. All right, we're going to do one more acceleration here and try to show you what it looks like. That's pretty fun. All right, now that we finished off with the 5 things I love about the Stelvio, now let's talk about the 4 things that I wish were a little bit better. I have no complaints on the outside, so let's jump inside and talk about some of the things there. Okay, so even though I've raved about this 12.3-inch gauge cluster display, I wish they carried over some of that updated technology onto this 8.8-inch infotainment screen. Okay, don't get me wrong, it's not bad, and I think it fits into this dashboard pretty well, but I feel like 8.8 inches is a little bit on the smaller side for 2024. A lot of the competition here are a little bit larger, at least 12.3 inches, and this just seems kind of small, especially for the top trim level. The other complaint I have about the screen is it's a little bit slow. So as you swipe, it's not as snappy to respond as some of the other vehicles on the market. So it takes a second for your finger to, tap on the button and for it to actually react. And it just feels like it could be a little bit quicker, a little bit snappier. I wish the graphics chip or maybe the processor was a little bit quicker here. Now, in terms of understanding this screen, it's pretty simple. You have this home widget screen where you can swipe through various different modes. You can go to your climate. You can open up performance pages here and look at some technical gauges. And then you can even go through into your settings here as well. Then you can push a zoomed out mode where you can kind of cycle through more widgets in one swipe, but it just seems like it's a little bit too slow for 2024. I think a lot of the competition are a little bit quicker and they offer a larger screen. Now, for the next thing I dislike about this vehicle, kind of goes alongside with some of the technology, and that is the lack of certain features in this particular Stelvio. Keep in mind, this is the top of the line trim level, but you do not get wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto. Those are both still wired connections. Also, there's no type of 360-degree camera. Putting this vehicle into reverse, you'll just get your typical backup camera, which isn't the best quality, and you at least do have parking sensors, but it would have been nice to have a 360 camera like you get in some of the German competition. Also, like I mentioned earlier, you do not get ventilated seats on the Stelvio. That's not even an option. You also don't get the option for a digital rear view camera mirror, and there's no real ambient lighting inside the vehicle. Yes, there is a setting inside this infotainment screen, but it mainly has to do with some of the cabin floor lighting and some of the lighting inside of the storage compartments, but there's no lighting located underneath here or inside of the door panel like you would find in like a Mercedes or a BMW, which is a really nice touch and makes interior cabins look a little bit more luxurious, but you just don't have that in the Stelvio. Now, the one nice feature that is included in this vehicle is a wireless charging pad, but that brings me to the next thing I kind of dislike about the Stelvio. And that has to do with the fact that my Samsung Galaxy S22 Ultra, which is one of the largest phones on the market, does not really fit inside this wireless charging pad. So here I am placing it in here, and sometimes it charges, sometimes it doesn't. In order for me to actually get it to charge, I have to pull it out of the case, and then I can stick it in here and it will fit inside of the compartment and actually charge. Otherwise, it kind of sticks out and remains elevated. I don't really get why they didn't just make this a little bit of a larger tray to be able to fit some of the largest iPhones and Galaxy phones on the market today. Now, the last feature I wish was a little bit better on the Stelvio is the interior color options. So like I mentioned in other parts of this video, this is the top of the line Competizione trim level, which I'm sure I'm mispronouncing. But that being said, black with red stitching is really the only color option you can get on the inside of this vehicle, which is really odd because some of the lower trim levels of this vehicle you can get with a red seat interior, which would look amazing for this top of the line trim level, but unfortunately this is the only color option you can get. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not bad. It looks really nice on the inside. Aside from maybe missing a little bit of contrast stitching on the door panel, it's a really nice interior that a majority of people are gonna like. But for those of us that want the exterior sporty styling to match the inside, a red or a brown interior would look really nice and be very welcomed by all of us car enthusiasts. Unfortunately, you gotta step down to the lower trim levels to get a snazzier interior color option. Well, there you have it, folks. That was 5 things I loved and 4 things that I wish were a little bit better on the 2024 Alfa Romeo Stelvio Competizione. All in all, this is one of the best handling and best driving and best performing compact luxury crossovers I've ever driven, hands down. It is a very fun vehicle to drive, and some of the things I dislike about this vehicle kind of disappear when you sit behind the driver's seat and drive this up a windy canyon. But what are your thoughts on the Alfa Romeo Stelvio? Would you take this over the competition, and why? Let me know down in the comments below. And if you guys did enjoy this video, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for all of the weekly car videos. Also check me out on all the social media at Schwazy_. Until next time, everybody, stay Schwazy, stay healthy, have a wonderful day.